What if you could cripple an enemy's war machine in just 3 days? Without a single soldier crossing the border, what if you could make a superpower feel powerless, watching its most valuable assets burn from hundreds of kilometers away? Over one single devastating weekend, Ukraine did exactly that. This wasn't a random attack. This was a calculated, multi-pronged assault designed for maximum chaos. We're talking about swarms of hundreds of drones descending from the sky, secret ghost ships exploding in a critical port, a major oil refinery turning into an inferno, and saboteurs striking from within Russia itself. This is the incredible true story of the 72 hours of hell that rocked Russia to its core and proved Ukraine's intelligence strategy is one of the most brilliant and terrifying in modern warfare. Stick with me as we break down every single strike that left Putin's regime reeling. The swarm descends. It all began in the dead of night on September 12th. The darkness over Russia was about to be shattered. Operators from Ukraine's elite 14th Unmanned Aircraft Regiment gave the command, and a storm was unleashed. Not a storm of rain, but of fire and steel. Around 230 long-range drones lifted into the air. A buzzing, whirring wave of destruction. It was the single largest one-night air raid Ukraine had launched in the entire war. These drones weren't flying blind. They were a coordinated swarm, splitting off to hit targets all across Russia's vast territory. But a special group of 30 drones had a particularly vital mission. Their destination? The Leningrad region. Their target? The Primorsk oil pumping station, one of Russia's most important gateways to the world. Striking Putin's ghost ships. Just as midnight struck, the first drones arrived over Primorsk. One after another, they plunged from the sky, their warheads aimed at the heart of Russia's oil economy. The Primorsk station isn't just a facility, it's the final stop of the massive Baltic pipeline system. It's the hub for nearly all of Russia's maritime oil exports that travel through the Baltic Sea. This port is the cash register that funds Putin's brutal invasion, pumping millions of barrels of oil to buyers around the globe. But Ukraine wasn't just targeting pipelines, they were hunting ghosts. Primorsk is a known lair for Russia's Shadow Fleet, a clandestine armada of aging oil tankers used to bypass Western sanctions. And on this night, Ukraine's drones found their prey. Explosions ripped through the port. Two massive Shadow Fleet tankers, the Kusto and the Kailun, were hit. The Kusto, an Aframax-class tanker, has the capacity to carry a staggering 700,000 barrels of oil. The Kailun is a similar beast, a 109,000-ton ship. Together, these two vessels represent a potential transport capacity of around 1.4 million barrels of oil. With a single, precise strike, Ukraine had vaporized that capacity. A third ship, the Hong Kong-flagged FOS-4, a 51,000-ton vessel capable of carrying another 300,000 barrels, was also hit for good measure. The Shadow Fleet exposed. To understand the genius of this attack, you need to understand the Shadow Fleet. This isn't an official Russian navy. It's a weapon of economic warfare, broken into two sinister divisions. First is the Grey Fleet. These are ships like the Kusto and Kailun. On paper, they look legitimate. They're registered in places like the Seychelles and fly the flag of countries like Sierra Leone. The ownership is buried under layers of shell companies, all designed to erase any link back to Russia. They operate in a legal gray area, exploiting loopholes to keep the oil and the money flowing. But then there's the Dark Fleet. These ships don't even pretend to be legal. They engage in a constant game of cat and mouse on the high seas. They turn off their automated identification systems, making them invisible on public trackers. They use advanced electronic warfare to spoof their locations, making it seem like they're in one ocean when they're actually thousands of miles away. These tankers are often old, poorly maintained, and uninsured, creating a massive environmental risk. As one Baltic Sea Coast Guard captain warned, if there was an oil accident with these ships, there will be an oil catastrophe in the Baltic. Russia has spent over $14 billion assembling this ghost armada, and for Ukraine, sinking them is just as important as sinking a warship. Primorsk in flames. The attack on the tankers was devastating, but the damage didn't stop there. The explosion on the Kusto was so powerful that all 28 of its crew members had to be evacuated. The ship was dead in the water. For days after the strike, Satellite photos confirmed that none of the 3 ships had moved an inch. They weren't sunk, but they were crippled, unable to sail, unable to generate profit for Putin. Worse for Russia, the blast had a domino effect. The shockwave and shrapnel damaged critical onshore infrastructure. 2 of Primorsk's 4 main loading stations, the very arms used to pump crude oil onto the tankers, were forced to cease operations. In one night, Ukraine may have cut the loading capacity of Russia's most important Baltic port by 50%. The message was terrifyingly clear. We can reach you, we can bleed you dry, and we can do it whenever we want. Analysts believe the weapon of choice was the Lyuti drone, a precision-guided aircraft with an upgraded 75-kilogram warhead and a bone-chilling range of 2,000 kilometers. Round 2. The refinery inferno. Russia was given just 48 hours to process the disaster at Primorsk. Then, on the night of September 14th, the sky filled with drones again. This time, a horde of 80 to 90 unmanned aircraft sliced through Russian airspace. While multiple targets were on the list, one stood out: the Kirishi oil refinery, just 60 miles southeast of St. Petersburg. Kirishi is a giant in Russia's energy sector. It processes up to 20 million tons of oil annually, accounting for a massive 6% of Russia's entire refining capacity. While some of its fuel might eventually reach the front lines, its primary role is even more strategic. It's the main fuel supplier for St. Petersburg, Russia's second wealthiest city, and the entire surrounding region. Ukrainian drones slammed into the refinery's main cracking tower. This is the heart of the facility, the place where crude oil is broken down into valuable products like gasoline. Without it, the entire refinery is useless. A massive fireball erupted, creating a mini mushroom cloud that lit up the night sky. The heart of Kirishi was now an inferno. Drone debris, Russia's pathetic excuse. As the fires raged, Russia's propaganda machine scrambled into damage control. The regional governor, Alexander Drozdenko, trotted out the most tired, unbelievable excuse in their playbook. He claimed there was no successful hit. Oh no. The massive fire, he insisted, was caused by falling drone debris after Russia's superior air defenses heroically shot them all down. He claimed the fire was minor and put out in a few hours. It was a laughable lie. Satellite images quickly emerged, showing catastrophic structural damage to processing units and fuel storage tanks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky didn't hold back, calling the strikes what they truly are: the most effective sanctions. The sanctions that work the fastest are firing on Russian oil plants. He's right. Ukraine was imposing its own sanctions, and they were working faster and more brutally than anything the West had devised. The sanctions that actually work. This campaign is about more than just blowing things up. It's about creating unbearable pressure inside Russia. For months, Ukraine's refinery strikes have been causing chaos. In August, gasoline shortages plagued Russia's remote eastern regions. Now, the problem is spreading. Major cities like Rostov and Saratov are feeling the pinch. By mid-September, Ukraine had already knocked out an estimated 17% of Russia's total refining capacity. With the Kirishi refinery hit, the pain is about to reach the elite in St. Petersburg. Suddenly, the war isn't some far-off special military operation. It's a massive queue at the gas station. It's skyrocketing fuel prices. It's the Kremlin's failure arriving directly at the doorsteps of its wealthiest citizens. Ukraine is forcing the Russian people to ask a dangerous question: how much are they willing to suffer for Putin's war? This strategy even caught the attention of President Donald Trump, who publicly challenged NATO nations to stop buying Russian oil, effectively amplifying the economic pressure Ukraine is creating with its drones. The final blow: sabotage on the rails. Just as Russia was reeling from 2 massive aerial assaults, Ukraine delivered the final, terrifying blow of the weekend. This time, there were no drones. This was intimate, ground-level warfare deep inside enemy territory. During the night of September 13th, a joint operation between the SBU and HUR, Ukraine's top intelligence agencies, targeted the Oryol-St. Petersburg railway line. This wasn't a random track. It's a critical supply artery used to move fuel and equipment to Russian forces fighting in the Kharkiv and Sumy directions. As a fully loaded fuel train chugged along the tracks, it rolled over a series of expertly planted mines. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. The blast killed 2 train guards, severely injured a railroad worker, and derailed 15 massive fuel tanker cars, scattering them like toys. Traffic on the major railway was halted for over 24 hours. A Ukrainian military source called it a uniquely complex operation designed for maximum disruption. The Kremlin's new nightmare. This final attack may have been the most worrying of all for the Kremlin. A drone strike is one thing, but planting mines on a major railway line requires a physical presence. It means one of 2 things, and both are Putin's worst nightmare. Either Ukrainian special forces are operating freely deep within Russia, or, even more terrifying, Russia's own citizens have been turned and are now working as saboteurs for Ukraine. Russia's colossal size, once its greatest strength, is now its greatest vulnerability. Its thousands of miles of railway tracks are impossible to guard completely. And now, Ukraine is proving it can strike them at will. Putin and his generals are now forced to look over their shoulders, wondering where the next operative is hiding and what they will target next. In 72 short hours, Ukraine hit Russia's wallet, its fuel supply, and its critical logistics. From drone swarms over the Baltic to saboteurs on the ground, they executed a brilliant and brutal strategy that left a trail of fire and chaos deep within Russian territory. This wasn't just a series of attacks, it was a message that the nature of this war has changed forever. Russia may have the bigger army, but Ukraine is proving it has the smarter strategy. After this weekend of fire, the real question is no longer if Ukraine can strike Russia at will, but how many more of Putin's weak points they've already found, and when they will decide to strike them next.